In the name of Allah, the Gracious, the Merciful. Dear students, hope you are all fine. Today I am sharing another video lecture with you. This is lecture number 4, and the topic of this lecture is barriers to good listening. In this lecture, I will try to talk about what is barrier. I will also discuss psychological barriers. I will talk about external barriers. I will talk about emotional and personal barriers. I will also cover socio-cultural barriers. At the end of this lecture, you will be able to know about different barriers to good listening. You will also be able to know about how to overcome these barriers. You will also be able to know about benefits of active listening. Now first I will talk about barriers to good listening. As you all know that listening is a very useful and worthwhile activity, but unfortunately attention is not given to the process of listening. People listen to a limited quality of what is spoken to them. Only 25% is listened to what is spoken. A good listener cannot recall completely what he has heard. It means that there are certain obstacles which hamper in his act of recalling a thing. These obstacles are called listening barriers. We can classify them in the following manner. The first is psychological barriers. The second is external barriers. The third is emotional or personal barriers. And the fourth one is socio-cultural barriers. Now I will talk about all these barriers in coming slides one by one. First of all, I will talk about psychological barriers. There are some psychological barriers which injure or weaken the process of listening. Psychological barriers are further divided into prejudices against the speaker. A listener does not pay attention to the words of the speaker who is in conflict with his ideas. He will not pay attention to the words of a person who has different sets of values and attitude from him. This prejudice will make his listening a shallow thing. So prejudice also is a barrier to effective listening. So whenever you talk, you need not to have prejudice against the speaker. The second psychological barrier is different background. Sometimes it so happens that a speaker has a different background from a listener. Every person brings with him his own values and traditions. A listener's background can be different from a speaker. This thing also affects the process of listening. So when there is a different background of a speaker is different from background of the listener, this also creates problems in listening. The third is thinking speed. It so happens that most of us speak very fast. A good listener fails to catch speed of the speaker's words. He may miss many points. His thinking faculty does not work as fast as the speaker's words. The result is that he cannot focus his attention on all points. So thinking speed is also very important. That thinking speed must be moderate. So this is not important that the train of thought which is going in the speaker's mind, the same train of thought is going into the receiver's mind. So thinking speed must be sharp in order to avoid barrier of listening. The fourth psychological barrier is emotional ups and downs. A listener may suffer from emotional ups and downs. He may be worried and angry at the time of listening. His mind may be occupied. He may soar to daydreaming. In this mental and emotional condition, he cannot listen to. So this is also a barrier when there is emotional ups and downs in the process of communication, or whether the speaker has this problem or the listener has this problem. It also creates barriers in communication. The fifth is self-centered listeners. Some listeners are self-centered. They think that they are superior to others. They suffer from an illusion of their superiority. They consider the speaker an inferior person. In this way, they separate themselves from the speaker. As a result, their capacity for good listening suffers a setback. The sixth psychological barrier is tendency to contradict. There are listeners who try to contradict each word of the speaker. They are always after an opportunity to contradict the speaker. This tendency to contradict does not allow them to understand the words of the speaker fully. They are always to attack and make a rebuttal of the speaker's view. So these are all psychological barriers which are barriers to effective listening. Now I will talk about external barriers to listening. These are external barriers which injure or weaken the process of listening. They are the following. The first one is noise. All type of noise affect the process of listening. Noise includes the noise produced by machines, horns of vehicles, fans, music, loudspeakers, etc. Suppose a person happens to listen a thing in a room where TV is on. Can he listen to anything? No, he would not be able to listen to anything. So loud noise is also a barrier to effective listening. The second external barrier is visual barriers. The glaring lights and gradually decorated rooms are some of the external barriers. The fantastic dress of the speaker, his hairstyle, use of perfume, and a golden watch may drive away the listener's attention. Posters on walls may catch the attention while he is busy in conversation with a friend or a colleague. So visual barriers are also there, and visual barriers also create problem in effective listening. The third important barrier is emotional barriers. These are some emotional barriers which injure or weaken the process of listening, in which the most prominent one is mental and emotional health. The process of listening is affected by the mental and emotional health of the speaker. A speaker may be having some imaginary fears. He may be anxious about the welfare of his family. He may be sad and lonely. He may have come across a tragic and sad incident in his life. He may be angry and frustrated at the failure of some of his plans. All these psychological factors hamper the process of positive and healthy things. So this thing is very important, that whenever you listen, you need to be mentally and emotionally healthy. If you are not mentally and emotionally healthy, so it will create problems to effective listening. The last kind of barrier is linguistics and semantic barriers. There are some linguistic semantic barriers which injure or weaken the process of listening. In this, first comes style of speaking. There are listeners who do not like the affected style of speaking on the part of speaker. A speaker may speak in a rhetorical or affected manner. A listener will not pay attention to the words of such a speaker. So this thing is very important, that whenever you speak, your style of speaking must be good, it must be appropriate, it must be listeners friendly. The second is use of difficult and technical words. The use of technical words on the part of professional people like doctors, engineers, and scientists may hamper the process of listening. Sometimes the speaker may speak in a certain jargon. A listener may not pay full attention to his difficult words. So this thing is very important, that whenever speaker uses vocabulary, that vocabulary must be according to the mental level of the listener. The third semantic barrier is slow speed. A speaker may stammer, he may speak very slow. A listener soon feels tired at the slow utterance of his words and stops taking interest in his talk. So proper speed is important. So this thing is important, that whenever a speaker speaks, his speaking speed must be appropriate. So then it would be easy for the listener to take interest. The last linguistic barrier is use of ambiguous words. Sometimes the use of ambiguous words create a difficult situation for the listener. He may fail to understand the true meaning of his talk. There are words which have double meaning. If the speaker uses such words, the listener may miss the real point of the message, and it will also affect the clarity of the message. So this thing is important, that you need to be careful about these four things, like style of speaking, use of difficult and technical words, slow speed, use of ambiguous words, in order to overcome linguistics and semantic barriers. Now I will talk about another important barrier, that is socio-cultural barriers. These barriers also injure or weaken the process of listening. The most important one in this is different cultural backgrounds. A speaker may belong to a different cultural, religious, and political background from the listener. Different social and cultural background may urge people to speak different languages. They may speak and spell words in a different way. An Asian is quite different from a European. This creates an uncomfortable situation if a speaker belongs to one culture and a listener to the other. So different culture backgrounds also create problems in effective listening. Now I will talk about how to overcome listening barriers. As you all know that listening is a dynamic and difficult process, we can cultivate the habit of listening with great labor and hard work. A poor listener justifies his inattention by declaring that the topic is uninteresting. He is more attracted to the speaker's dress, clothes, voice, mannerism, grammar than to be nothing down of facts. We can overcome these bad habits of a poor listening by adopting the following methods. First, we should cultivate the habit of judging the content and not get distracted by delivery errors. Do not get carried away by the speaker's physical appearance. The second is repeat the key ideas to yourself, exercise your mind, constantly try to summarize the points so that you remember them. The third, avoid daydreaming, have a determined attitude to listen to what is being said. It is also advisable to keep your eyes fixed on the speaker. If you let your eyes wander, it will travel on unnecessary excursions. Fourth, try to connect up the speaker's remarks to your own personal experiences. This will make things easier to remember and those issues will stay in your memory for a longer time. Fifth, have an open mind. Do not be biased against the speaker or the situation or the fact that you are being forced to listen. When the mind is closed, a person can hear, but he cannot listen. The sixth is ask questions and clarify doubts if you have any. Seventh, be positive. Be keen to get empowered with some information from the talk. If you have the right attitude, listening automatically becomes effective. The eighth one is take notes if you feel that will help you in concentrating and having a better retention, but do not let the practice of writing prevent you from listening. And the ninth one is listen and try to grasp for between the line messages. So these are different steps. By adopting these steps, by adopting these points, you can overcome all barriers and you can be an effective listener. Dear students, after barriers to good listening, now I will talk about negative listening. People may react negatively to messages for various reasons. The effective listener needs to be aware of the potential for these negative reactions and suppress such barriers to effective listening. The first is rejection. It is disagreement with the point being made. The second is denial, not wanting to accept the message that is being communicated. The third is ignoring, trying to hide from receiving the message. The fourth is defensiveness, understanding and interpreting the message but feeling blamed or attacked and naturally wanting to defend one's position. The fifth is yes or but, conditionally agreeing with the speaker's message. Then anger, being angry at the speaker. Then withdrawal, not wanting to be involved either in the discussion or associated with the information that is being communicated. And then passivity, not caring or being interested. And then ninth one, aggression, being actively hostile either because of the speaker or because of the message. And then the last one, fake agreement, appearing to agree with the message but fundamentally disagreeing with it and not sharing with the speaker that disagreement. So this kind of listening is negative listening. Now I will talk about benefits of active listening. Active listening is a very useful and rewarding activity. An active listener is a very important member of an organization. He promotes the business of firm and develops happy relations among the employees and the employer. He builds an atmosphere of trust and goodwill among the members of the staff. We can classify useful activities for the firm under the following headings. The first one is promotes happy working environment. An active listener creates goodwill and happy atmosphere among the working people of an organization. He listens attentively to the message conveyed to him very attentively. He tries to understand the contents of the message. He puts his mind to know the cultural, ethnical, and moral backgrounds of the speaker. He pays attention to know about expectations and goals of the speaker. In this way, an active speaker promotes the business of the firm. He also builds better understanding among different members of organization. The second is active listening makes an end of doubts and rumors. An active listener puts an end to the doubts and rumors which prevail among the members of staff. By listening clearly and positively, he gives clear and solid information. This passes the way for healthy exchange of views and opinions. This in turn reduces the possibility of tension and bad blood among the employees of different departments. In this way, an effective and good listener puts an end to all the rumors and false beliefs which grip the atmosphere of the organization. The third benefit of active listening is that it saves time. A good listener pays serious attention to what he listens. He sends the message of what he has heard promptly. In this way, he saves time. So these are different benefits of active listening. Dear students, now I will tell you about the proportion of listening in communication, that how much listening is important in communication, and how much do you listen while you communicate. According to the research of Elder, Rosenfeld, and Proctor, adults spend an average of 70% of their time engaged in some sort of communication. Of this, an average of 45% is spent listening, compared to 30% speaking, 16% reading, and 9% writing. Furthermore, it has been suggested that people may only remember between 25 and 50% of what they hear. With listening being such a key activity, it is even more critical that employees develop effective listening skills to be able to maximize their performance in the business environment. So listening skills are very important if you want to be a better communicator. So you need to be a good listener, because in communication, most of the time, what we do that we listen. So dear students, in this lecture, we discussed different barriers to effective listening. We also discussed how to overcome these barriers, and we also talked about benefits of active listening. So I hope that you have got the concept. Thank you.